Hey everyone, and welcome back to Brook YB Book Review. You know how sometimes you read a book or watch a documentary and it totally changes how you see the world? Today we're diving into the works of a thinker who has that effect on pretty much everyone who reads it, Noam Chomsky. Chomsky is a linguist, philosopher, cognitive scientist, historian, social critic, and political activist. He's been called the father of modern linguistics, but his work extends far beyond language. We're going to be talking about 6 of his books that deal with media, propaganda, and power. Yeah, it's going to get kind of intense, so buckle up because things are about to get real. Alright, let's start with Necessary Illusions, Thought Control in Democratic Societies, published in 1989. This book is basically Chomsky throwing down the gauntlet. He argues that even in democratic societies where we like to think we're free thinkers, there are powerful forces shaping our thoughts and perceptions. It's like, remember in The Matrix when Morpheus offers Neo the red pill and the blue pill? Chomsky is basically Morpheus in this scenario, except instead of a pill, he's offering us his analysis of how media, government, and corporations work together to create what he calls necessary illusions. These illusions aren't some grand conspiracy theory, they're more like subtle biases, unquestioned assumptions, and carefully curated narratives that serve the interests of the powerful. Chomsky argues that these illusions are necessary because they prevent us from questioning the status quo. Think about it. It's much easier to control a population that's passively accepting information than one that's constantly questioning and challenging the narratives they're being fed. Chomsky uses a ton of historical examples to back up his claims, from the Vietnam War to the Cold War, showing how propaganda wasn't just something practiced by the bad guys, but was a tool used by even the most supposedly free and open societies. He dives into the concept of manufacturing consent, which we'll talk about more in a bit, but essentially it's the idea that instead of using force to control people, powerful institutions use more subtle methods like controlling the flow of information and shaping public opinion through media. This book is a bit of a challenge, I'm not gonna lie. But it's one of those books that, once you grapple with its ideas, you can't unsee them. It changes how you consume news, how you think about politics, and even how you understand your own role in society. Let's move on to what might be Chomsky's most famous work, Manufacturing Consent, The Political Economy of the Mass Media, co-written with Edward S. Herman and published in 1988. This book dives deep into the idea we touched on earlier, the media's role in manufacturing consent. The central argument is that the media, while often seen as a watchdog keeping power in check, actually functions more like a filter that reinforces the dominant narratives and interests of the elite. They lay out what they call the propaganda model, which outlines 5 filters that influence how news is produced and consumed. These filters include things like media ownership being concentrated in the hands of a few corporations, advertising as the primary source of media revenue, and the reliance on official sources for information. The book argues that these filters create a system where information that challenges the status quo is less likely to be seen, heard, or taken seriously. Think about it. If a media corporation is owned by a massive conglomerate with ties to certain industries, are they really going to run stories that are deeply critical of those industries? Or if a news outlet relies heavily on advertising revenue from, say, oil companies, are they going to give equal weight to stories about climate change caused by fossil fuels? Chomsky and Herman argue that this isn't necessarily a matter of some evil conspiracy, but rather a more subtle systemic bias that emerges from the structure of the media itself. Manufacturing Consent is a dense read, but it's packed with historical examples and case studies that illustrate their points. They look at how the media covers everything from labor strikes to foreign elections, showing how the propaganda model plays out in the real world. This book is essential reading for anyone who wants to understand how the media works, how it influences our perceptions, and how it can be used to shape public opinion. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Hegemony, or Survival America's Quest for Global Dominance, published in 2003. This book is Chomsky at his most overtly political, and it's a searing critique of US foreign policy. The central question Chomsky tackles in this book is this: can the United States maintain its position as the global superpower indefinitely, or will its pursuit of hegemony ultimately lead to its own destruction, and possibly even the destruction of humanity itself? Chomsky argues that the US has consistently pursued policies aimed at maintaining its global dominance, often at the expense of other nations and even its own principles. He points to the invasion of Iraq, the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, and the proliferation of nuclear weapons as examples of this dangerous pursuit of power. He doesn't pull any punches, calling out both Democratic and Republican administrations for their roles in perpetuating what he sees as a dangerous and unsustainable imperial project. Chomsky argues that this pursuit of global dominance is driven by a number of factors, including economic interests, ideological crusades, and the sheer inertia of a powerful military-industrial complex. He also delves into the role of propaganda and fear-mongering in justifying these actions to the American public, linking back to the themes of manufacturing consent. Hegemony or Survival is a challenging but important read. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about US foreign policy and the potential consequences of unchecked power on a global scale. It's a book that will stay with you long after you finish reading it. Chapter 4. Understanding Power, Essential Chomsky. Now, let's take a bit of a breather with Understanding Power, the Indispensable Chomsky, published in 2002. This book is a bit different from the others we've discussed so far. It's a collection of edited transcripts from seminars and interviews with Chomsky, where he discusses a wide range of topics, from linguistics and cognitive science to politics, history, and the role of intellectuals in society. Think of it like a Chomsky Greatest Hits compilation. What makes this book so engaging is Chomsky's conversational tone, and his remarkable ability to explain complex ideas in a clear and accessible way. He doesn't shy away from controversy, but he also engages with his critics and encourages readers to think for themselves. Understanding Power covers a lot of ground. He talks about the nature of language and how it shapes our understanding of the world, the historical roots of modern political systems, the role of propaganda and media in shaping public opinion, and the responsibility of intellectuals to speak truth to power. This book is a great entry point for anyone new to Chomsky's work, as it provides a broad overview of his key ideas. But it's also a valuable resource for those already familiar with his writing, as it offers new insights and perspectives on familiar themes. Chapter 5. Media Control, Propaganda's Triumph in the Information Age. Alright, let's dive back into the world of media and propaganda with Media Control, The Spectacular Achievements of Propaganda, published in 1991. In this book, Chomsky hones in on the insidious ways propaganda operates in seemingly democratic societies. He argues that, while outright censorship might be less common in these contexts, more subtle and sophisticated methods of information control are at play. Chomsky examines how propaganda functions not just through outright lies or misinformation, but also through the selective presentation of facts, the framing of issues in particular ways, and the use of emotionally charged language to manipulate public perception. He argues that these techniques are often so effective because they operate beneath the surface of our awareness. We might think we're making up our own minds based on objective information, but Chomsky suggests that our perceptions are often being subtly shaped by forces beyond our immediate control. He explores how these propaganda techniques are used to manufacture consent for war, to justify economic inequality, and to demonize marginalized groups. Chomsky also discusses the role of fear in propaganda, arguing that by creating a climate of fear and insecurity, those in power can more easily manipulate the public into accepting policies that might otherwise be met with resistance. Media Control is a short but powerful read that will make you question everything you see, hear, and read in the media. Chapter 6. Who Rules the World? Exposing the Shadowy Networks of Power. Finally, let's wrap things up with Chomsky's more recent work, Who Rules the World, published in 2016. This book is a sweeping analysis of power in the 21st century, exploring the forces that shape global politics, economics, and culture. Chomsky argues that while the world may seem increasingly complex and interconnected, the underlying structures of power remain remarkably resistant to change. He examines the role of the United States as a global superpower, the rise of new economic powers like China, and the ongoing challenges posed by climate change, terrorism, and economic inequality. Chomsky doesn't shy away from criticizing what he sees as the injustices of the current world order, but he also offers glimpses of hope and possibility for a more just and equitable future. He argues that despite the challenges we face, ordinary people have the power to challenge the status quo and create a better world. Who Rules the World is a challenging but ultimately hopeful book. It's a call to action for all of us to become more informed, engaged, and active citizens in the fight for a more just and sustainable future. Outrow the Power of Critical Thinking. So there you have it, 6 of Noam Chomsky's most influential works that will undoubtedly make you question everything you thought you knew about media, power, and the world around you. Chomsky's analysis forces us to question not just what we know, but how we come to know it. Are we truly free thinkers, or are our thoughts subtly directed by forces beyond our control? Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of influential thinkers.